You are listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast, where it's all about responding with confidence to the legal, financial, and personal challenges created by a disability, unexpected illness, or aging in general. Join us weekly as elder law attorneys Barbara McGinnis and Chris Johnson, along with other members of the Johnson McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning team, talk about the tools, techniques, strategies, and services that will make the elder care journey easier for everyone involved. Get ready, because aging starts now.
Do you have long-term care insurance? Are you saving it for an emergency? Hi, I'm Pati Bedwell, and I'm an elder care coordinator at Johnson McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning. On today's episode of Aging Starts Now, we're talking about long-term care insurance and why you should use it before you lose it. Joining us for today's episode is senior care expert and long-term care advocate, Debbie Miller. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you, Patti. It's so good to be with you, and I'm looking forward to delving into this topic and helping folks unlock their long-term care insurance to help pay for care.
All right, well, let's start out. Let's set the stage. Why is senior care becoming such a pressing issue right now?
Well, as many of you know, we have an aging population. Close to 11,000 people a day are turning 65. And at the front end of that is the fastest growing age group, which is among 80 to 85-year-olds. So people are living longer, but they're also living with chronic conditions. And so a lot of folks are going to need some assistance at some point in their life. In fact, 70% of us will need assistance with daily activities at some point. So we definitely have a growing demand for senior care.
So what kind of care? It's getting more in-depth, more chronic, as you said, more chronic illnesses. So where's the biggest demand?
The biggest demand is definitely with assistance with activities of daily living. We've got a lot of, unfortunately, that end up hospitalized, and we want to do whatever we can to keep them from doing that. Most people say they want to age in place, but have to really accept that we are going to need some assistance. So we want to put those services in place so that we don't end up in the hospital. And so there are things that we can be doing, maybe a little bit care earlier on to avoid that crisis situation that ends us in the hospital, and then often triggering that decline that we often see when somebody is hospitalized. So whatever we can do sort of earlier on to set them up for success as they walk out this aging journey.
So really, home-based care is very high in demand. That's your bread and butter right there, providing services in the home. Do people wait too long to get services started? Is that kind of, part of the things that are going on right now?
I believe so. When you look at just the visits to the ER, the emergency room, department. We're looking at about 29 million people over the age of 60 end up in the hospital. And then the readmissions rates are so high. You're looking at 33% of seniors over 65 end up back in the hospital within 30 days. 50% will end up back in the hospital within 90 days. So that says something's going on at home and not necessarily being considered, especially if, at discharge, nobody's necessarily going home with these folks saying, well, what was it that led to the hospitalization? So I think if there were some interventions that were put in place a little earlier, and certainly when we look at long-term care, I think we'll get into it in just a minute, but there are a lot of people that don't use their policy. They end up passing away before taking advantage of any of the benefits that could have paid for that care, particularly at home, that might have kept them, safer.
Right. I think we do that a lot. We save up on those long-term care insurance policies, kind of the same like we save for retirement. And then if you're lucky enough, you get to use it. If not, you've missed your opportunity.
Yes. Use it or lose it.
Exactly.
I know.
Exactly. Um, so what are some of the roadblocks, or what are some of the things that happen that keep people maybe from tapping into their long-term care insurance policy?
I think it's partly the folks think that the bar is pretty high to be able to utilize the benefit. So, in other
Hmm.
words, I think people think they have to be pretty incapacitated before they can actually activate the policy. And that isn't the case. I would say about 70% of the folks that we serve, that we support at home, who are utilizing the benefits of their policy to pay for care, are just getting standby assistance. So these folks that think that they might be, need to be in the nursing home or home, bed bound, that's not the case. The other thing is just not knowing, not recognizing the signs that it's time. A little bit of denial, a little bit of pride comes into place. Seniors might resist getting help. And there's this sort of misconception that I don't want to give up my independence. And what I try to help people understand is and empower, it really empowers you to and supports your independence through a little bit of assistance. So, it's better to make the decision while you can make the decision versus being in a situation where you are more incapacitated and, maybe don't have the same choices that you had you maybe done an intervention a little bit sooner than later. So I think denial and pride really come into place and just lack of knowledge. Like, so people buy these policies long time ago and they're collecting dust somewhere and not realizing how beneficial this could possibly be for you now. And so just helping folks and educating like we're doing today that, look, you know, use it or lose it. And you've spent a lot of money monthly for years and years. And so, we don't want to be one of those statistics where, 50% of people will pass away before taking advantage of any benefit.
Right. And really it sounds like, well, I know, the sooner the earlier you put care into the home, even if it's just like you said, those minimal things at the beginning, putting those things in place is going to help a person stay home longer.
Exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
because they have more safety nets in place and they're just a little bit better prepared. So they're easing into it and making their environment safer. But so many of us, I believe you're right, that point of pride. And yeah, no, I'm not quite bad enough yet to utilize this. And, here we go.
Yeah, yeah. When folks understand, and it can be the littlest things, right, Patty? You've probably seen it 1,000 times where I slipped falling, getting out of the shower, or we had a lady that we started 24-hour care for. She had mobility issues. She was going to get the mail out of the mailbox and slipped and fell, and now we're providing 24-hour care for her.
Hmm.
Luckily, her neighbor found her at the side of the road. It was a really unfortunate situation. So it's those little things. Getting the garbage is something as simple as getting the garbage to the driveway safely. It's hard to do when you have a walker. Getting your meals, all of the things that we see every day that seem simple to us when we're younger become more difficult.
Right, right. We just don't see it happening, to ourselves, and we don't like to acknowledge it because that acknowledgement in and of itself is kind of, startling.
Exactly.
And, we run from those kinds of things. So what types of services does long-term care insurance usually cover?
It really depends on the policy. And I have seen hundreds and hundreds of policies, and every one of them is different. It's very
Hmm.
individualized. But for the most part, these policies cover home care, adult day programs, assisted living, nursing homes. So it's you've got to really delve into the details of each policy And that's something that we actually help folks with. We do a very thorough policy review to help tease out all the details and nuances that are written within that policy so that folks have a better understanding of what's available to them and make it a little bit easier to navigate, because it can be kind of challenging. Sometimes these big carriers don't make it easy, especially for seniors. And so, really we want to help them better understand all that they have available to them. And then one of them being, okay, what exactly type of care does the policy cover?
Yeah, it's been my experience, and I think you mentioned this. Most people are really not very sure what their long-term care insurance policy covers. So they might think they need one thing, but they may not have that sort of coverage. So really understanding your policy is really, really key to getting the most benefit out of your long-term care insurance.
Exactly. Sometimes there's some really interesting, I call them the bells and whistles. And when you call, nobody gives you this information, unfortunately, but we have a way of really teasing it out. For example, there may be a benefit for home modification. After a call a couple of years ago, I'll never forget this, a man that we were caring for did not want to move his wife down. They were going to have to adjust the house and make the dining room into her bedroom because she was struggling to get up and down the stairs. And it turned out he had $35,000 benefit for home modification. So we were able to work with a local provider and get a stick chairlift installed in the home, and it was all covered by the long-term care policy. He would never have known that. And of course, they're not volunteering that information. So there's lots of great benefits that people, when they bought the policy, it was initially to save the money when that time came, but not realizing, wow, that saved him from having to make a change that he really didn't want to in his home and in their lifestyle. So it's pretty exciting when you find some really good stuff there in the policy.
Oh, I can imagine that made an incredible difference to that couple, not only for her, but for him as well. It assured he's going to stay home for longer, too.
Exactly. Right.
So I guess I am, and I'm not surprised to learn how few people actually do use their long-term care benefits. Do you have any statistics on that?
Yes. Well, about 50% of people never use their benefits because they pass away. And then of that 50%, only 70% or 70% of folks pass away before the money in the policy ever runs out. So again, these are just signs that people wait too long to activate their policy. And for a lot of the reasons that we've already discussed. And so when we realize that often to initiate a claim usually only requires needing assistance with 2 activities of daily living. So that might be bathing and dressing. It might be walking. So if those are struggles, and often again, the policy is written where you just need somebody standing by within arm reach to ensure that you're safe when you're doing those things. Some policies are written that you actually need hands-on assistance. So when we do the assessment and we do a policy review, we understand exactly what the requirements are of the policy, and then we write the care plan to ensure that it is supporting those requirements. And so, we ensure that our caregiver is providing that hands-on assistance if that's what's necessary. So we want to just really make sure that, and certainly for those who have policies, you want to be working with somebody that understands long-term care insurance and is doing everything on the provider's part to help and support that you don't get denied or delayed when you do make a claim. So those are really important factors to consider. But the reality is, too many people wait too long and have compromised all that investment that they made. And as I said earlier, we could be improving your quality of life and taking advantage of the policy. And by the way, we hear people complaining every day about the increases in premiums. And often when you activate a claim, initiate a claim, and begin to take advantage of those benefits, those monthly premiums typically go away. So that same man that I was telling you about, he was paying $800 a month for his policy. And he came to a seminar, which is how I met him, that we were educating folks on policies. And he came in so frustrated. Well, when we learned that his wife was pretty advanced dementia, he was providing 24-hour care for her. When we did the assessment, that monthly premium that she was paying for hers, it went away. He got 10 hours of care and $35,000 in the home mod. So again, it's just people don't know what they don't know. And
Wow.
yeah, so if you're frustrated with that premium and you're holding off on care, this is a time when, you may qualify and don't even know.
Wow. That's a great story to be shouted from the mountaintops.
Exactly.
Really. So that brings me to my next question. If somebody has a policy and they're not needing anything, they're just going along, just middle age, whatever, what should they do today to make sure they are ready when the time to utilize this comes?
You definitely want to make sure that your family knows that you have it, because this is a huge benefit to everybody. As you know, Patty, in your organization, you deal with families who are preparing and families who haven't, and it can be overwhelming. So have your power of attorney, have your advance directives, ensure that your family knows what your wishes are. Communicate. If you have a long-term care insurance policy, you should be mailing your power of attorney and all those documents to your carrier so that they have it on file in case, something in a crisis happens and they may not even know that you have this benefit. So that's really important. Watch for the early signs that, you may be needing a little bit of assistance to ensure that you don't end up in the hospital. And that's, somebody that could be a third party objective doing an assessment. That's something that we do also with our life profile, where we actually can score somebody on the probability of a hospitalization. And then when it comes time, if you want to learn a little bit more about what all your benefits are that you have, we do a free policy review. And then what we do is advocate for you, get on the phone, do a third party call with the carrier, and actually work through all the details that are specific to you and to your in your policy. So there's a lot of good things, but pull it out, dust it off, have a read. If you want to really delve a little bit more, we can senior helpers can definitely help with that.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. So you are a big believer in long-term care advocacy.
Yes.
Can you tell the people that are listening, what does that mean and why is that important?
Well, like I said earlier, unfortunately, these long-term care insurance companies do not make it easy. And in fact, throughout the years, I've been doing senior care for 18 years. And over the years, prior to my really getting educated myself and becoming an advocate, I've had to get the insurance commissioner involved. Because, these folks, especially that don't have family that can advocate for them, can get the runaround. And it's really, really unfortunate. So you really need somebody that understands long-term care insurance, knows how to ask the questions that are going to get you the details you need, even the how to navigate this. Where do I start? What do I have to ask them for? What am I going to need to submit to initiate the claim? So it can be very, very burdensome. And so having somebody that can help you through that process can be really helpful. And it's sort of just guiding you along. It's like, think about it as a guide. You definitely don't have to do it alone. And, when it comes to the aging journey, it in itself can be kind of scary or, people just don't know where to start. So just having somebody in your camp that can help you along the way is, I think, how I would describe it.
Yeah, I think it's great just having someone there that you can bounce things off of, get opinions from. Yeah, I think you've stated that very well. So just final thoughts, I guess. What do you think is your biggest takeaway for the people listening to us today? And where can they go? Where can they go to get help?
Sure. I think the biggest one is don't wait too long. Don't be a statistic. Sometimes I say, as care managers, my marketers will go into the home, and sometimes we have to be the ones to call out the elephant in the room. And we hear people say, well, I'm not ready yet. Meanwhile, 2 hospitalizations later, here we are. Or I don't want to do anything yet because I don't want to run out of money. And that's, here's the statistic for folks to know. There are 8 million policy holders across the country. There are only about 300,000 activated policies right now. And I just heard a statistic. I was at a conference literally just this past week in Colorado Springs. And there were this long-term care lawyers there. And one of the talks, he said, there are 3 million policyholders right now who are qualified to initiate a claim and get their care paid for, but don't know it. And so that would be my message is don't wait too long. Let's figure out, is there, do you have a need? Let's get some care in place so that you can have the best quality of life possible and avoid any of those crises that we talked about that could, speed things along for you, begin that cycle of decline that often happens after a hospitalization. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. And let's take advantage of this amazing investment that you made, a long time ago. And so get these benefits to pay for the care that you need and enjoy the best quality of life.
That sounds wonderful. And yep, we pay for the benefits. Now it's time to use them and use them to support the life that you want to lead.
Exactly.
Well, Debbie, thank you so much. That is all the time we have for today. Now, if you know someone who is sitting on their long-term care policy, send them this episode. Johnson McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning is a life care planning law firm helping people navigate the care questions and financial concerns surrounding aging. Join us next week for another episode of Aging Starts Now.
Thank you for listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast. For more information about today's show, visit tn-elderlaw.com, click on the Free Resources tab, and then click on Aging Starts Now. You'll find the show notes there. And while you're at it, why not check out all the free resources available at tn-elderlaw.com. Document downloads, the Johnson McGinnis blog, educational videos, informative articles, helpful links, a TV show, and more. It's all there, free for the taking. If you enjoy listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast, please subscribe, rate the show, or leave us a review. It's easy to do on whatever app you use to listen. We would love your feedback on the show. Aging Starts Now. We'll be back next week with more candid discussions about the challenges created by aging, disability, and unexpected illness.